right, well, why don't we get started? It is a little past 9 o'clock. Welcome, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today, wherever that may be from. My name is Sarah Sladen, and I'm really excited to welcome you to our first Mentorship Initiative event for YouthLead this morning. I am a Senior Youth Engagement Advisor for Youth Power 2 Learning and Evaluation at Making Sense. And in my role, I support youth engagement for our YouthLead platform. And if you're here today, you may already be familiar with youthlead.org. But if you're not, just to share a little bit more about the platform, YouthLead was launched in 2018 with the goal to serve as a global hub to connect young change makers, community activists, advocates, and social impact entrepreneurs with one another as a global professional network. And the purpose of the platform is also to help connect you with resources and information, events, and other ways to grow your professional pathways. As part of YouthLead, this year, this past July, we launched our Mentorship Initiative. The purpose of the initiative is to create a place on our platform where you can find information, resources, and networks specifically about mentorship, whether you are a mentor or a mentee, whether you're interested in growing your skills in mentorship or simply want to learn more about what mentorship is. We know that mentorship is a critical part of all of our personal and professional pathways. And so again, we want to create a space on YouthLead where you can find information about mentorship and grow your skills. As part of the mentorship platform, this year we launched an event series with the goal to explore some key topics within mentorship to help grow our knowledge. Over the next few months, we'll be hosting events like the one we're hosting this morning, and we hope that you'll join us. We'll share a little bit more at the end of this webinar about the mentorship series and a couple of the topics that you can expect to see going forward. But for today's session, we are really excited to welcome Marisa Hattab as our first speaker as part of this series. Marisa is with Mentor Nebraska, which she joined in 2019. She currently serves as the Associate Director for Partnership Development and Training. And in her role, Marisa provides on-the-ground support for the advancement of youth-initiated mentoring statewide, training and technical assistance, manages a team of consultants, and leads Mentor's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force with a heavy focus on racial equity reform. Prior to her role with Mentor, Marisa spent more than 10 years actively engaging with youth through mentoring and education. Marisa is passionate about seeing youth evolve into confident leaders who aim to change, not trust their circumstances, but also their communities. Marisa, I'm really grateful to you for joining us today. I'm going to turn it over to you to lead us through today's session on finding, assessing, and approaching mentors. And thank you so much again for joining us.
It is my pleasure. I've been reading some of the names that have popped up in the chat, and man, some of you are from all over the world. I saw Jordan also, someone's from Jordan, and my husband's family's actually from Jordan. I hope to be able to travel there one day, but I'm so happy to be here. Very quickly, Mentor Nebraska is an affiliate of the National Mentoring Partnership out of Boston here in the United States. And so they graciously extended this opportunity after YouthLead reached out to them. And so I just wanted to really briefly just share about that. We're a backbone agency here in Nebraska, and we exist to support mentoring programs who offer direct services to youth programs. We're really passionate about advocacy, collaboration, and ensuring that our youth are provided quality mentoring services and best practices. So that's a little bit about who I work for, and you're more than welcome to go to the next slide. So there's going to be different ways that you can engage with today's training. There's going to be polling. So we're going to do a poll so I can kind of assess kind of where people are. We're going to do some Jamboards. And also feel free to utilize the chat box. If there's something that I say that kind of sparks a question or even a comment where you're like, hey, I can really relate to that, or whatever your ideas or thoughts may be, please feel free to put those in the chat box. And there's someone that's going to be checking the chat box throughout the session. And at the end, we're also going to have a question and answer section. So even if I'm not able to address it like right there in the moment, we will be able to come back to it towards the end of the training. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to do a poll. So Katie, if you don't mind pulling up that poll, that would be perfect. In the next slide. Okay, so you should see 3 different questions within your poll. The first one is, how many of you have ever had a mentor before? I'm talking about from infancy all the way to whatever age you are now. The second one is, how many of you have any current mentors? So some of you may be like, I've had a mentor when I was, in elementary school or college or whatever, but I don't currently have a mentor. Or some of you may say, I didn't when I was younger, but I have a mentor now. And then also, I just want to kind of gauge who's in the room. So if you don't mind kind of filling in what bubble, what age you are, that would be super helpful as well. And then we'll share the results. Okay, so hopefully each of you can see the results as well, but it looks like 60% of you say that you've had a mentor before and 40% say, no, I haven't. About 30% of you say, yes, I have a mentor right now. And 70% say, no, I don't have a mentor. And then the ages in the room. Wow, it looks like 60% of us are 30 plus. Man, I feel really old saying that. I'm in that category too, folks. Like, I'm 32 years old. I know I look 18, but I'm actually 32. So, and about 30% are 18 to 24 and 10% 25 through 29. Excellent. Thank you so much for participating. I just wanted to kind of get a gauge of who was in the room and what our experience is with mentorship. So we'll go ahead and move forward. And I just want to briefly discuss kind of what today's main takeaways, what you can expect to walk away with. So one, we'll be able to identify great attributes or characteristics that mentors possess. We'll be able to self-reflect on how mentoring has impacted our journey this far. Some of us may be like, oh, I actually have had a mentor before. I just didn't realize that was what a mentor was. Or some of you may be like, hey, if I would have had a mentor, at a particular point in my journey, maybe I could be further. Or, we'll all be able to kind of self-reflect on how mentoring has or hasn't impacted our journey. We'll understand the importance of self-advocacy in pursuing mentoring relationships. And then hopefully be motivated to take steps towards choosing, pursuing, and building an amazing relationship with a mentor. So that's what you can kind of expect to take away from today. So the next thing that I want us to be able to do, yep, Katie, go ahead and move forward. I want us to kind of discuss through engaging with a Jamboard, what makes a mentor a great mentor? So before we jump to the Jamboard, I want us to think about this. So Katie, go ahead and share the next slide, please. So in the United States, and I know even all throughout the world, there are superheroes, right? And I want you to kind of think, about growing up, who may have been your favorite superhero? Was it Superman? Was it Superwoman? I mean, anybody out there, the Hulk, I actually call my 4-year-old daughter the Hulk. She has a lot of attributes like the Hulk. Sometimes she gets really angry and likes to smash things. That might be her favorite superhero, who knows? But I want you to think about the characteristics that your superhero possessed that made you really inspired by them. Some of you may have been like, I want to be like them. I wish I could have this superpower or this super strength or this resiliency or the ability to read people in the room and read their minds. Whatever those attributes are, I want you to think about them and kind of hold them in your minds, okay? And Katie, if you don't mind, we're gonna share the Jamboard. Select a sticky note and write down what are some characteristics that your favorite superhero may have that may resemble what makes a great mentor. So if you were to think about what made you inspired by a hero and what you may look for in a mentor, I want you to put that on the sticky note. So some of you are already in there. So we have some honesty, empathy, they were active listeners, courageous, a sense of personal responsibility and integrity. I love that one. honesty, know themselves, confidence. Yeah, that's really great. Credible, authentic. I love these. True to herself, excellent. Responsible. And Cole shared, feel free, if you're not able to jump into the Jamboard, please feel free to use the chat box as well. Creative. These are all like even inspiring me. They know themselves. Something that I would add myself is I would say like selfless. Some of them had like this, I will do whatever it takes to save someone else, and they would put others before themselves. I feel like doing that with a healthy perspective is important, but sometimes it can be to your detriment as well. I guess you could say any of these fall into that category. Visionary, friendly. I see someone put friendly in the chat box. A problem solver, inclusive, caring, empathetic, leadership. You all are doing great, intentional. Man, all of these are like filling my cup this morning. Open to sharing when they're, open to sharing, which then allows others to be open to sharing. Yeah, vulnerability, leading by example, courageous authenticity. Yeah, okay, awesome. Thank you for, oh, my dad. Yeah, I'm seeing awesome ones even in the chat box. Have a clear vision and mission. Trustworthy, loving, a beautiful soul, reliable, fun, funny, present. Those are great attributes about your father. Thank you for sharing, and great superhero attributes. I love that you mentioned your father, because yeah, your superhero could have been a person, like an actual role model or someone you looked up to, or a parent or sibling, a leader. These are excellent. Helps to elevate my voice. Y'all, I think I can be done with this training. We just identified what makes someone a great, not just superhero, but a phenomenal mentor. You all are just killing it. Supportive, constructive, intentional, an influencer. Yeah, okay. Katie, if you don't mind, let's go back to the slide deck. And we actually are going to come back and do a Jamboard here in a few minutes as well. But I want us to talk a little bit about this together. So I think you all did such a phenomenal job really identifying what makes a good mentor. And, you know, sometimes we can get stuck on, I've talked to some people before, and especially like youth. So one of the things that you may have heard when she was reading my biography is that I'm over a statewide program called Youth Initiated Mentoring. And so essentially in that model, we empower youth to choose someone who's already been in their life at some point to be their mentor. So they're not partnered with a stranger, right? So sometimes when I'm having those conversations with youth, we start, well, not sometimes, we always start around really identifying what are great attributions and characteristics that mentors possess. And by us having that conversation, we're then able to take a step further and really think about people in our lives who've actually just naturally been a mentor to us that we may not have even really realized. They'll think about who has, to some of the words you put, who's been trustworthy, who's an active listener, who has inspired me, who has held me accountable lovingly, who has showcased empathy. What do I enjoy to do? Who, someone put in there, they're funny, they're fun, they're energetic. We begin to have all these conversations about who in their lives have already demonstrated some of those abilities. And something else that I also say when I'm doing trainings and talking with those youth is, without trust, there's no influence. We're not able to influence anyone if they don't trust us. And I think that's a really big attribute to a role model and mentor as well, as someone who's trustworthy. someone that we feel like they're credible. That's something someone else said as well when we were just communicating and sharing what are characteristics of a great hero or mentor. And by them being credible, that gives them access to speak into our lives to help challenge us and grow us and come alongside of us and support us. And so while we're having this conversation, I want you to begin to kind of think of who have been some of those people just naturally. It could be an educator, a teacher, an older cousin, a friend, a sibling. I mean, we could go on and on. It could be a coach. It could be, yeah, anyone really that has been a support to you and has some of those characteristics that we've already discussed. Something else that I really want us to think about, because majority of us in here are 18 plus. Some of us, 60% of us are 30 plus, And so something that I really like to talk about, even when it comes to teenagers, is a mentoring relationship should be founded on mutual respect and a mutual exchange. In the realm of mentoring, sometimes people can come with a perspective of a savior. Like, it is my job, it is my duty to come and share with my mentee everything that I know, all the lessons I've learned, because I want to prevent them from making them as well. And a lot of times it's just them sharing and them talking and them holding someone else accountable. But I want you all to know that you too possess those characteristics that we just unpacked. You too have something to offer in a mentor relationship. And so I want us to take time, if you don't mind, Katie, can you go to the next slide? I want you to begin to think, do you identify yourself as a great mentor as well? Because if we really talk about it being founded on a mutual exchange and mutual respect, I want you to realize that not only will you benefit from being in a mentor, having a mentor in your life, they're going to benefit as well. And so the next activity that we're going to do, Katie, if you can move forward, thank you, is I want you to begin to think about yourself. What are some attributes? Katie, can you go to the next slide, please? I want you to think about attributes that you have. When we look into this graphic, it says, I am resilient and caring and unique and brave and trustworthy and all these different words. But I wonder if anyone else in the room can relate with me. Sometimes I have a very hard time really thinking about what I do well, how I take up space, and how I can contribute and what type of impact I've made on people's lives. And so I really want to take some time for us to reflect. I want us to hype ourselves up and be like, yeah, I'm really a dope person. I am great. I have phenomenal attributes. I have something to contribute as well. And so I want us to go back to the Jamboard, and we're going to do a second activity. So something that I want you to write on your sticky note, and again, if you're not able to access the Jamboard, feel free to write yours in the chat box. I want you to think about what you're most proud of when it comes to you and why you would make a great mentor as well. What about you would make you a great mentor when it comes to character you possess? So I want you to think about that, and then I want you to put it on a sticky note. I am an empathetic and active listener, empathy and compassion for others. I can easily put myself in the shoes of people, so I think it's a great attribute. I agree. That is a phenomenal attribute. Empathy, compassion, an active listener. I'm strategic and like helping others solve problems or challenges. I care about the growth and development of others. Okay, excellent. I'm an active listener and my students ask me to do coaching. Excellent. I'm an influencer. I like seeing others succeed. Non-judgmental. Good at giving constructive feedback. Excellent. I'm a motivator, an active listener. You all are some amazing people. I'm passionate to help those students who really show a need. Excellent. I value diversity. I want to learn to be better at being constructive. Okay. You want to learn to be better at giving constructive feedback. Excellent. Okay, just a little bit longer. For some of you who may still be thinking, I want you to really think in the realm of what are you most proud of when it comes to who you are? So I'll share about me. I was talking to my friend yesterday and I shared with her, I'm like, I don't want to have what I call the spirit of takeover. Sometimes I can go into a room, an organization, a space, and there is a thing called strength finders. And my top strength finder is called restorative. And so with me being restorative, I typically can assess people or situations and think about how can I make this more effective, or how can I make this stronger, or how can I bring more life to something. And so I call it, sometimes I can take over and be like, oh, this would be great and this would be phenomenal. And so with balance, that's something I'm also really proud of, being a problem solver. So I am social, I'm ambitious and a learner. I love to devote time to others whom I care for. Faith is restorative, individualistic. Ooh, so you understand restorative. I also have individualism in mind. That's my third faith. So we have two of similar top strengths. I'm breaking barriers. Yes, you all are inspiring me. Okay, excellent. Thank you so much for, oh wait, I have a great enthusiasm for sharing my experiences and expertise with others. I value diversity. If I overlooked yours, I am so sorry. But I'm very positive and people say it's contagious in a good way. Okay. Thank you so much for participating with these Jamboards. This is actually going to be our last Jamboard that we interact with today. So I just would like to say, man, just by like reading those attributes, the things that you're most proud of, the things that you believe would make you a great mentor, I genuinely would like to say, you all seem like such phenomenal and genuine people. And so I'm so grateful that you kind of stepped out there. Sometimes there's kind of a risk, in us really thinking about the things that we're most proud of and what we do well. It's so easy for us to think about our deficits or our weaknesses or things that we need to learn and grow in. That's kind of a lot of people's go-to. Even when it comes to like applying for a job or asking for a promotion or anything really. Typically, a lot of people will lead with, okay, I can do ABC. Man, I don't know how to do XYZ. And so sometimes we'll talk ourselves out of things because it's easier for us to fixate on our deficits rather than our strengths. And so I really wanted to just pause and create a moment for us to really analyze what we do very well. Because like I said, a great mentoring relationship should be mutual. It should be an exchange. It's not just take, and it's not just give. It should be give and take. And so in the realm of pursuing a mentor, sometimes it can be scary. So I want to share with you, I personally have 3 active mentors in my life, and they all serve a different purpose. And out of the 3, can you guess how many of those I pursued myself? So if you all could, in the chat box, out of the 3 mentors I have, how many would you guess I had to pursue them? Or how many of you would guess they pursued me? So how many do you think I had to ask them to be my mentor out of the 3? So I'll share with you this. 1, out of the 3, all 3 of them I pursued. Every single one of them I pursued. And I just want to share with you One of them who has been my mentor now for 10 years, which seems so crazy to say, but literally she's been my mentor for 10 years. I reached out to her. I invited her to come to my apartment. So I'm like 22 years old at the time. And I cooked, I will never forget, I made a chicken noodle soup in my crock pot and it was very delicious. But anyways, that's a side note. I invited her over for lunch and I asked her to be my mentor and she legitimately said no to me, y'all. She said no. So imagine like it took all of this effort. Like, okay, I'm going to ask her to be my mentor. I'm inviting her over. I'm going to have this really delicious soup. And then she says no. But you all know that she ends up being my mentor because I told you she's been in my life for 10 years now. So how does it, yeah, I'm going to share with you how it felt getting the no. At first, it stung a little bit, right? But the conversation continued. She didn't just say no, and then it was like, finito, over. She said, I'm curious to know why you want me to be your mentor. What do you see in me? And her story was she had invested a lot in young women and they would be flaky. They wouldn't show up. They would ask her for advice, but not really value it or honor it. And she felt like she had been used a lot. So actually, in her saying no and then asking me the question, why did I even want her to be my mentor? It created some authentic, genuine, vulnerable conversation. And ultimately, when we walked away from that conversation, she was open to it, but she also put the ball in my court. She said, if, I respect the things I see. I told her I saw strength in her. She had a lot of attributes that I really valued and I wanted to strengthen in myself. She was very strategic. She was very discerning. And at that particular time in my life, I was really on a healing journey. I'd been in a very dysfunctional relationship and I was just trying to rebuild my life. So she also modeled health and wholeness. So when I kind of shared those things with her, she was like, okay, Marisa, I'm open to mentoring you, but I also want to let you know that there's an expectation on my behalf when it comes to you pursuing me as well. She let me know that. I was like, say no more. I will pursue you. And it was an exchange. Like, we joke about it now. It was a great conversation, but I share that story to say, what do you think are feelings that keep us from really taking the risk and pursuing people and asking them to help us? And in this particular conversation, it's mentoring. We would be pursuing them to become our mentors. So what I want to ask you is, what do you think? What is a feeling that some of us may be fearful of that prevents us from pursuing them? So what's the elephant in the room? What do you think the elephant in the room is when it comes to why we may not step out and take the risk to say, hey, I see something in you and I would love to learn more? Or would you be my mentor? What do you think might be a feeling we're afraid of? Not wanting to feel like a burden to a potential mentor. That's real, Katie. Fear of rejection. So I would like to say this. I think 2 people put rejection so far. Ding, 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 ding. That is literally what the elephant typically is in the room. Even when it comes to like not being afraid to be a burden, that's also kind of tied into rejection. Like, oh my goodness, if I'm a burden to someone, then I may be rejected, right? So a lot of you are really putting it out there, fear of rejection. And so to your point, I think someone asked me like, what did I initially, feel when she said no? Like, for a moment, I did feel a little rejected. Like, who wants to put them? It's a great risk to put yourself out there. It's kind of like we're bearing it all to, one, say we need help, and 2, to say, can you help me, making it more personal? And then what if they say no? And so I would just like to acknowledge that fear and say that it's a real fear, it's valid. But I also want to challenge you all to say, If we are not willing to be uncomfortable, how are we really willing and able to grow? Without us being willing to look that fear in the face and then take a step past it, we're not really going to be able to grow. And each of us have our own goals, our own desires, our own motivations and motives as far as why we want a mentor, why we need a mentor. And rejection is a true fear. You can experience rejection even with those you're in relationship with. Rejection comes in so many different ways. But what I want to do is just say, I hope that you all would be willing to take a step past rejection, because on the other side of the rejection I faced in that situation with my mentor, which we laugh about, is a phenomenal relationship. She has been in my life for 10 years. She has seen me at my lowest. She has seen me at my highest. She honors and respects the personhood of me. She calls me and asks me for advice sometimes. Literally, my mentor called me, 2 weeks ago and asked me some advice about her career, right? So it's an exchange now. So I just really want to, before we really discuss how you can even think about who to pursue, I just wanted to really acknowledge that that's a real fear, a fear that most of us have. But we've got to be willing to be uncomfortable, and we've got to be willing to take a risk so that we can grow, so that we can excel. And also remember, we have something to give. And so by us practicing being uncomfortable and taking the risk, we can model that behavior for those who may want to pursue us to be mentors too. So, all right, we're going to go ahead and move forward, Katie. So I want us now to kind of very briefly in the chat box, I want you to think about, how does having a mentor help you level up in life? So when I say leveling up, I mean, like, what are ways that mentors partnering with your vision for your life, your mission for your life? Those were some of the things that you all shared on that Jamboard. How does that help us grow? How does that help us elevate? So I'll give you an example. Some of you may say it may help us to strengthen relationship building skills. So what are ways that a mentor can help us grow? And I'm going to check the chat box. Excellent. She helped me to define my SWOT, which is an assessment. I think it's strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and I forget what the T stands for. What is, would you mind sharing what the T stands for? Is it Murad? Threat. There we go. Thank you. Excellent. She helped you define your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, things that may keep you from being able to grow and excel. Excellent. I saw your comment, Sarah. Thank you so much. That's an excellent point. You all are making great points in there. Okay. Well, I don't want us to spend too much time. Okay. Introduces you to a new network or people. Yeah, networking. And networking can lead to opportunities to help you change your mindset, to be a change maker and help young people. Excellent. Self-direct, learning by sharing relevant links. Awesome. You all, so far, some of you shared really great things. It helps you to look inwardly and grow as a person. It gives you access to networks of support, right? It gives you, and those networks of support can create doors of opportunities that maybe you couldn't have opened by yourself. It can help you identify some of your weaknesses and your strengths and opportunities you may have missed. And then some of those threats that may keep you from being able to excel. It helped build your confidence. Think outside the box. Someone said that they value diversity. Sometimes mentors can also expose you to a greater web of support. And so I want us to move forward, Katie, if you don't mind. And I want us to begin to, we're going to land this training today in a way in which we can start to really think about how we can really identify who these people are within our sphere of influence, who we have access to. And I'm sure that the YouthLead Initiative will be able to have ongoing conversations around mentorship and providing resources for you as well. But I want you to also think about who you have access to in your lives already. And so that's why we're going to talk about strategies, strategically thinking about the relationships we've already been exposed to. We've talked a little bit about the risk when it comes to like rejection and being uncomfortable and stepping out. And I want to share with you a tool called the social capital mapping process. So we'll go ahead, excellent. And I want to share with you, this is a resource that I utilize when I'm taking people through the process of figuring out who in their lives have been a great mentor to them. So if you want to participate right now, you're more than welcome to, but I also did share this resource that can be sent to you after today's training, and you can interact with it then too. But I wanted to just be able to give you an opportunity to kind of think about ways in which you can think about who has already shown up for me. So if you see at the top of this circle, you see a box that says my family. On the right side, underneath that, you'll see other significant people in my life. At the bottom, you'll see people I know from school and or after school, people I know from memberships and clubs or groups that you're a part of, and then close friends. So typically what we'll do is we'll go through something similar that we did when we talked about like the superheroes and attributes, that like activity that we did. I don't do like exactly that with them. I just thought that was fun for us to engage with, but we'll think about like what are great attributes of a mentor. If they could create their ideal mentor from scratch, right? If they were to create them and draw them, how they look, what their sexual orientation may be, what their background is, what they're skilled at, are they funny? They literally would just create who would be their ideal mentor. And then after we discuss those things, we're like, okay, so who in your family has some of those attributes? Who in your everyday lives may have some of those attributes? It could be someone at the bank that you go to every day that you really respect, and they inspire you because you got to know them every Friday when you go to make a deposit. It could literally be anyone, right? That was super random, but we all interact with people every day in many different ways. We just start thinking about, who do I have access to already? Who has shown up for me already? And a lot of times folks will think about like coaches. Now, sometimes there has to be continual conversation I have with coaches, because although coaches can absolutely be mentors, there's a difference between being a mentor and a coach. And so, but there's phenomenal attributes that coaches have. There's phenomenal attributes that college professors have, and teachers and so on and so forth have. So we talk about that as well. And there was just a link shared in the chat about the more resources that YouthLead Initiatives has. And then we think about the different clubs and groups that we're a part of. So I'll give you an example. I'm a part of, here in Omaha, Nebraska, I'm a part of the Urban League's Young Professionals. So it's a group full of young professionals ranging from 19 all the way through 39 in many different career paths, and possess all different types of like skills and phenomenal attributes that I'm inspired by and I value. And some of them I may be like, hey, how did you really advance in your professional career? Could you give me some support and advice? It could be a club like that. Some of you may participate on teams. It could be someone on your even team. A mentor doesn't always have to be someone who's older than you. And there could be even someone in your close family or your close friends. When you think about your close friends, they may have a parent that you really trust and you really value. And by you thinking about your friend, you're like, oh yeah, their mom is amazing, or their brother is amazing. I would love to learn from him, or their father. It doesn't have to be your actual friend. It could be someone connected to your friend that you really respect. And so there's just all these different ways that you can access folks that you've already grown to know, you've already trusted. at some part of your life. You might not trust them like with everything, but you might say, hey, they seem to be trustworthy, or they seem to be an active listener, or they seem to be someone who had empathy and compassion, or they seem to be someone who um, really had the ability to be resilient. And so when you think about the characteristics that you really admire in someone, or characteristics that you hope to strengthen inside yourself, by being able to think about these different ways. And something else I would add to this would be your workplaces. Some of us have had different careers, different jobs. So that's something else that you could add in there. You could trade one out when it says my family, you can put my workplace, my career path, different supervisors, or even coworkers, or just different people that you've worked alongside of that you really admired. So I just wanted to share this with you as an actual tangible, practical resource that you could utilize to really begin to think about who can show up for you and who has shown up for you in a super meaningful way. So for the sake of time, we're Katie, if you can move forward, we'll just land with some steps to take. And then after that, we'll open it up for some questions and be done. This time has went by really fast. So when you're pursuing a mentor, I think it's important before you even pursue them. Before I pursued my mentor who told me no, right, y'all? I had a strong understanding behind my why. I didn't know she was going to ask me, what do you see in me that, makes you want me to be your mentor? I didn't know how the conversation would go, but because I had a strong why behind what I saw in them and what I hope to gain from the relationship, the conversation was super productive, and she's still in my life 10 years later. When asking, share what you see in them. Share with them what you've already learned from their example and how they've already made an impact. I mean, how many of us hear on a regular basis how we've impacted someone's life? How many times do we have someone come and say, Marisa, or Cole, or Bryant, man, you are such a strategic thinker. I wish I could be like that. Can you help me, Bryant? I mean, you're just phenomenal. Who is going to be mad at someone coming and gassing them up or giving them compliments, right? It's also important that there's expectation setting, that you share and you talk about what your expectations are in the relationship. What are their expectations? Something that's important that I also learned from my mentor is it's important to be consistent in your personal investment by keeping your word. So if you pursue them and you say you want them to be a mentor, then you need to be consistent at reaching out. You need to be consistent at actually following through with what you promise to do, or just showing up for coffee and not being super late or not being forgetful. Like, you want to show them that you really value their contribution in your life. And then lastly, enjoy the journey. It's fun. Sometimes it can be messy, but if we can keep those characteristics that we are most proud of, and those characteristics that we say that we see in them at the forefront, being active listeners, being non-judgmental, compassion, empathy, clear direction for our lives, vision, mission. I mean, we said all these things, funny. Then I feel that even if the journey is kind of messy because we're human, that we'll be able to enjoy it, we'll be able to grow, and we'll be able to learn from each other. And so now I want to kind of pass the baton over to Bryant or anyone else that wants to share with your next slides, and then we can have time for Q&A.
Thanks so much, Marisa. And if you can just slide to the next slide, we can open it up for questions. If you've got a question, I think maybe I'd invite you to write it in the chat right now, and we can wait just a minute and see what comes in. I know, Marisa, the first question that we got a little earlier was about sharing the presentation, and Cole reminded us that the presentation will be shared on YouthLead and by email, so we hope everybody will get a copy of that. Yeah, are there any other questions in the chat now? Marisa, there's some thanks for your facilitation and your training, so thank you for that.
Thank you for those kind words. That was from Mentor, so thank you. I think that's probably a question for you, Brian, that just popped up from Sagar.
Yeah, Sagar says, I've been using YouthLead for a year, but I could not find any mentor. So I think, yeah, that's a good question, and it speaks a bit to, Marisa, some of the difficulties that you were talking about, sort of self or youth-initiated mentoring and finding mentors when they might not be in obvious places around us. I'd say that, and I'll share a link here, since July, we've had this mentorship initiative, and we've been focused on connecting people to mentors. And a great place to continue the discussion would be on the YouthLead Mentorship Initiative discussion group. And we're hoping to connect people through that platform, both people who are looking to be mentors and people who want mentors on that site. So I hope that we can connect you to a mentor, Sagar. Marisa, Cole had a question about how do you approach a mentor who has never been a mentor before?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think if you approach them with those suggestions that I had made, as far as like giving them clarity as far as why you already kind of see them as a mentor, what attributes they have that you really value and you really respect, and also what you hope to gain. So for example, Cole, if you were to pursue them and say, hey, I'm really wanting to grow in my career path, and I have found that you've been successful, sometimes by asking targeted questions, it kind of helps them to figure out, oh, so here are Cole's expectations of me, what he sees in me, what he hopes to gain, what his goals are. And then, oh, so now I can kind of figure out along the way, right? Like I said, sometimes it's messy. It's sometimes you're learning to dance together, right? But by you at least being clear as far as what you hope to gain and what you see in them, it kind of helps them to figure it out. Like, okay, because a mentor is just there to support you and to partner with your vision and mission for your life. So all of us at any given point could be a mentor as well. Some of the folks here on this training right now, you could be a mentor to each other. I mean, I don't know if that's within the program's expectations, but I'm saying by you building community, sometimes you find that someone else right next to you have some of the answers you're looking for. So hopefully that's helpful.
Thanks, Marisa. We've got a couple more questions. Sarah asked, what's something that surprised you about having a mentor that you didn't expect, and why?
Family. The mentor that I shared with you about, that's been now a part of my life for 10 years, I wasn't expecting for that particular relationship to evolve into being a personal, intimate relationship the way that one did. Now, I shared with you, I have like 3 different mentors. Some of them are like, I have a professional mentor, I have a spiritual mentor, and then just kind of like a whatever mentor. They help me with all the things. And so the one that helps me with all the things, her family became my family. I call her husband Papa Rob. I was in her daughter's wedding. So I was not expecting for it to evolve to be that personal. So, yeah.
Thanks. Maymuna asked, what are some of the challenges you faced during the process of being a mentee?
Problems that I may have had from being a mentee? Is that what she asked?
I think challenges sort of that arose during the process. So you definitely talked about one of the initial rejection, but maybe there are other challenges that would come up.
A lot of them were internal for me. So one would be shame. I know that's kind of like intimate, right? But truly, that was one of my challenges. It's like, if I felt like a decision I made would be something that my mentor didn't approve of, or a decision that my mentor like advised me against, like to prevent me from like having a hardship, sometimes I would kind of feel shame around like, oh, should I tell him? Like I kind of made this mistake and it had a big consequence. But when again, like, being in a mentoring mentee relationship requires a risk. And so, man, I'm telling you, every time I pushed through the shame and just stood in my authentic truth, every time my mentor just affirmed me and covered me. And I didn't have a mentor that said, I told you so. So though that was one of my greatest obstacles.
That sounds like a really valuable experience, having those mentors. I see two more questions here, and I think maybe we can close it out with these. From Faith and Murad. Faith asked, how can one make the most out of a remote mentorship experience and building a lasting relationship out of that?
I think it's important to show your faces. Matter of fact, is it a possibility for me to see people instead of just the screen? Because I haven't been able to see anyone's faces. So that would be helpful for me right now. If anyone who's willing to share their faces on camera could, I would love to see your faces. But this is a moment, like, I think if you're creating remote connections and relationships, showing your face is really important during those times. Being consistent. So if you have like meetups that you're doing virtually, like being consistent in those meetups. I shared with you that my mentor has been in my life for 10 years. Of the 10 years, 6 of them I've lived in Nebraska and they're in Ohio. So for 6 years, I've had to maintain a remote mentoring relationship. Was it different because the first 4 years were in person? Yeah, it could be. But even in the 6 years that we've been kind of remotely being in each other's lives, we've been consistent in showing, we use FaceTime to see each other when we're talking and just consistently checking in with each other. So I think that is a big contribution, is being consistent in your communication and showing your face. So Sagar, I'm not sure if I'm saying your name properly. Thank you for showing your face. I wish I could have seen some others, but yeah. And then I think we have one final question before we finish today.
Yeah. So the last question here is from Murad. Hi, Murad. Are there groups of mentors where we can share ideas and develop skills like life learning and training? And so I think one place is the YouthLead site, but then also, Marisa, I wonder if there's other resources that you could share in that area.
As far as like virtual communities and convenings and meeting folks that way?
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm not quite sure. Like, I know, like, as far as our networks of support, every affiliate operates differently. So sometimes we have symposiums and conferences where mentoring professionals come together. But I think being a part of this network, hopefully that's something that some feedback they can get and be intentional in creating community for you virtually.
Thanks, Marisa.
My pleasure.
All right. If we could go back to the slides, there's a couple other announcements I just wanted to share with people. So the first one is about the event series that we have. So we had an event on July 30th. We've had this one at the end of October. And there's 4 more events scheduled in this series. There will be one on listening and mentor relationships in January. And then there will be 3 more scheduled going throughout August of next year. So I really hope that if this event interested you, and if you're interested in learning more, that you'll consider coming to these upcoming events as well. And then if you can go to the next slide, yeah. So outside of the events, there's a lot of ways that you can contribute to the mentorship initiative. We'd love to have you share feedback on the website. We'd love to hear about what mentorship topics are important to you, and that can help guide where we go with these future events as well. So that's an exciting opportunity. You can join the discussion group and post to the discussion group. And you can also, if you're aware of more resources or mentorship networks, you can share those with us too. And we'd love to advertise them and promote them through the YouthLead website. And so to get in touch with us, you can contact the team at infoyl@youthpower.org, or you can talk to Sarah at sarahs@makingsense.com. Thanks.
Thanks, Bryant. We are at time, and I want to just quickly say thank you so much again to you, Marisa, for hosting today's training. It has been super inspiring and a really wonderful chance to learn from you and reflect on these questions. I think that these are lifelong questions, right? They're applicable to all of us, no matter our age, no matter where we're from. Finding a mentor is about taking risks and about growth. And I really, really appreciate you so honestly and openly sharing your experience with us today and with all of our participants from YouthLead. Thank you for joining us and being here for an hour with us from around the world. It was really great to see your questions and reflections in today's session. I feel like I learned so much from all of you, and I'm really grateful for your time and for joining us. As Bryant said, we have more events coming up. But we were really thrilled to welcome Mentor National and Marisa Hattab from Nebraska in particular for this first session today. So thank you again, everybody. Please stay safe and well, and visit youthlead.org to learn more, and then also reach out with any questions that you may have. We will post the recording and the resources that Mentor has shared with us onto the youthlead.org platform under the Mentorship Initiative. Thanks again, everybody. Be well.